Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. And this guy, Agit Kabayel, he is on everyone's radar now because he's finally had an opportunity to fight on the big stage. But there's some things about him that may surprise you because Agit Kabayel isn't someone who just happened to fumble across an opportunity to fight in Riyadh against Arslanbek Makhmudov. Now, Kabayel is ranked across a few of the sanctioning bodies. Okay, no one should be surprised at that. He's not in the top 5, and some of them he's not even in the top 10. In a couple he is. But the reason you don't know much about him because he's a German professional boxer. But the thing that we need to understand, I don't think people realize, is that at that regional level, that he did hold and currently holds several championships. So he held multiple heavyweight championships, but since March 2023, he's held the European title. And that's a pretty big damn deal. Now, he went on, and this is the thing, that damn Derek Chisora has been fighting for a long time, and he's been fighting all kind of people. But in 2017, Kabayel defended his European heavyweight title against, at the time, Derek Chisora was a WBC world title challenger, and he was able to get the win. Now, the scorecards to me were a little bit funky. 115-113 Kabayel, 115-114 Kabayel, and then 114-114 a draw. And that gave Chisora his 8th professional loss. Now, Chisora, even back then, he kind of had the style, Joe Frazier style. He'll come out plodding along, start off slow, and then what happens is he starts to pick up the pace. But what you saw in Kabayel then is what we saw in Kabayel against Arslanbek Makhmudov. His ability to use his feet to get out of trouble and use quick combinations upstairs and downstairs to win rounds. Now, Derek Chisora is extremely tough, and that was a young Chisora, so you weren't just going to get in the ring and knock Chisora out. But nonetheless, when you look at that, the fact that Kabayel stands about 6'3", and he's using his footwork, he's known for using his footwork and fancy combinations to get him out of trouble and win rounds. That's the same thing Chris Byrd used to do. Chris Byrd was naturally a small, I ain't gonna say a small man because light heavyweight, light heavyweight, cruiserweight doesn't make you small. But Chris Byrd was fighting around 211, 212. Chris Byrd stood 6'2", Kabayel 6'3". Kabayel's naturally a bigger guy. But the bottom line is, when you see Kabayel getting there around 6'3", and Chris Byrd 6'2", and using that footwork and those combinations and IQ and intelligence to basically be the David in there against the Goliaths and bring those big monsters down, that's the same thing Chris Byrd used to do. Chris Byrd would get in there, frustrate the hell out of these guys, and knock them out, or definitely go on to get a decision. And he did that with IQ, with the footwork, and then with a whole lot of bravery. Because for them to get in the ring with those monsters, knowing they're outsized, outpowered, even outmatched in some instances, and still be able to get in there and put the work in and get the victory, that says a lot about their character. So when I was watching Agit Kabayel against Makhmudov, that's the same thing I was thinking to myself. God damn, this man is outboxing these big ass heavyweight, just like Chris Byrd used to do. But there's something that I learned. I was told that Makhmudov. Now I didn't go look up the interview. I don't know where the person getting this information, but supposedly Makhmudov may have broken his right hand in the second round against Kabayel. Now I personally don't think that right hand would have really mattered much because Kabayel was getting away from it, and he was just touching up Makhmudov too much. And even with the big right hand, with Kabayel touching him up to the body the way he was, I just think Makhmudov was going to get folded the way he did at some point in the fight. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you about Kabayel, for those people who are saying, man, where did this guy come from? Now, this is what's interesting. He was supposed to fight Now, this is gonna blow some of y'all's mind. He was approached and had a contract sent to him by Frank Warren in 2020 so he could fight Tyson Fury. However, that fight was ultimately canceled because there were some complications, at that time with Wilder and Tyson Fury and the contract disputes and the arbitration, which eventually led to the trilogy between Wilder and Fury. Now, I'm going to point something out because during that same time where Frank Warren had a contract over to Kabayel, right? Supposedly, what's his name? Anthony Joshua and Fury had agreed to a fight also. So what this is doing is when you hear me talk about the secret society and only the fly on the wall knows what the hell is going on behind the scenes, this gives you a little peek behind the tent flaps of the politics of boxing and the shit that goes on. Because this is all key techniques when it comes to negotiating tactics. And that's what we're seeing here, where Frank Warren has discussions going with this fighter, this fighter's promoter, and this fighter, and this fighter's promoter, and this fighter. And then ultimately they know what direction they want to go, but they're going to use that as leverage to put pressure on what I would say is the number one choice and route they want to go, but to let them know, like, hey, if you don't want to do it, I got these other guys here. When really they don't have any intentions in the world of making those other fights unless they're left no options at all. And that to me sucks. Dangling a carrot, you know what I'm saying? And get the person all worked up, and just to know really deep down, you never wanted to fight. You hear Deontay Wilder talk about that sometimes. You hear other fighters talk about that sometimes. Eddie Hearn does that a lot. He's always talking about fighters' names, and he has no intention at all of putting some of his fighters in with the names of potential opponents that he's always trumpeting about. So that being said, Kabayel has been around for a while. There's a lot of photos of him out there where he just come out sparring with a lot of the big names. And one thing that I think is very interesting when we talk about Agit Kabayel. Now, I just did a video talking about, different guys must go, right? When you look at Kabayel, this is what kind of caught my attention. Has 24 wins, 16 by KO, no losses. 66% KO ratio. This man turned pro in 2011. Okay, so he's been fighting for 12 years. And he's averaged about 2 fights a year. But I just think, man, that's a long time to turn professional. He's 31 years old now. Of course, he's fighting out of Germany, 6'3". But when you look at the opponents he's faced, you're not going to recognize any of these names, okay? So when you come and look at the opponents he's faced, Kevin Johnson, you should know that name. Agron Smakachi and Pavel Sauer and some of these other names. Derek Chisora there in 2017, but again, you're not going to know these names. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing about a guy like Kabayel. Because although he's been putting in work, he's got the footwork, he got the combinations, he really hasn't had an opportunity. But what he showed us is that there's something there to him. He's a Chris Byrd type of fighter. Now, with his next fight, I don't know what's going to happen. But if he can do like Chris Byrd was able to do for all those years, and still use his footwork, use his combinations, use his intelligence, and use the fact his size disadvantage as an advantage, Kabayel could upset the apple cart again. I'm just being honest with you. When you look across the heavyweight landscape, there aren't too many heavyweights that are floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, like Arslanbek Makhmudov, like Agit Kabayel did against Makhmudov. The only other person that really comes to mind, of course, Usyk, and some of the smaller guys, Frank Sanchez. But the bottom line is a concentric few who can actually get out there and, chicken peck an opponent to a decision. That being said, Agit Kabayel, in my opinion, looks like he could be today's Chris Byrd, where he's out there with these monsters, the David versus Goliath, and bringing them down one by one. So let's see how he does in his next fight. Keep cool, I'm in the breeze.